Please welcome Sofía Silva. She's the Govtech specialist at IE PublicTech Lab. And joining her for the interview, Zaban, head of Govtech at Creators Israel, all the way from Tel Aviv. Thank you for joining us.
Hello. Hi, Roy.
Hi, thank you for inviting me.
Pleasure. So, Roy, we were just talking about how Govtech programs are flourishing around the world, and you have just published a report on the leading Govtech programs at a global level. So, as a starting point, why don't you share with us very briefly some insights on the international landscape of Govtech programs? How does it look like? Is it diverse or particularly flourishing in a specific region or format?
So I think that looking at GovTech programs, they are very diverse. They're also a new kind of entrepreneurship framework, because if you would look like 5 years ago, I don't think you would see more than 2 to 3 programs. The average age of the programs that we analyzed was 2.5 years. So I think we could say this is something new. We see them coming up all over the world, mostly in Europe and Latin America, but also in the US, of course, in Canada, and also in Asia and Australia. So it's not something that only in one geographical area. It's all over the place. And also the models are really interesting, because it's not only governments, federal governments, also municipalities are working independently or joining forces with other municipalities to bring GovTech into their daily work. And we see that trend that is coming in more and more countries that are also joining this revolution. And it's not only the countries, I have to say, also universities are managing programs, also NGOs are managing programs, also the private sector sometimes manages GovTech programs, because I think that everyone sees the potential. This is the pre-COVID potential. I'm not talking the post-COVID, that I think will increase these kind of programs, and we will see more and more of them expand. So we see a lot of different programs, a lot of interesting programs. I want to say that I think that there's one thing that is common for all the programs, that they all have 3 main objectives. They all want to bring more education to the public sector, use these programs to educate civil servants to understand how to work with technology, how to work with startups, and how to be open-minded. The second thing is implementation. Most, if not all, of the programs want to, at the end, implement technology in the public sector and not only talk about it. And the third thing is ecosystem growth. Everyone wants to develop this kind of ecosystem in their country, bring more and more startups that are doing impact on the public sector. And I think that these 3 objectives, we will see them more and more coming into other countries that are not currently part of this ecosystem. And I think that we can start talking about also about a global ecosystem that is emerging. And the programs, each one of them are pushing one of these 3 objectives according to their strategic matters. But this is a really common thing that we see in all kind of programs.
Yeah, I mean, I think that really shows that GovTech programs are thriving. And I mean, we know that there's an obvious need for transformation in government. Public institutions have to renew their relationship with citizens, especially in terms of increasing transparency and efficiency. They must ensure the welfare state, and they have to prevent the private sector from embracing the provision of public services. So I would like to ask you, why do you think that these GovTech programs in particular are proving so relevant for these kind of government transformations?
So I think there are 2 aspects in that. First thing is the approach, and second thing is the facilitation. And I'll talk a few words firstly about the approach. So most, if not all, the programs adopted a challenge-based approach. It means that the public sector is part of the game by saying that we want you to say what's your problem and not talk about the solution. For the first time, governments are asked to say what they're specialized in, saying what are your problems and why they are cure, and not also take responsibility about the solution, about the technology, because technology is evolving really quick, and not all of us, we can actually trace, understand all the technological trends and what's going on. But the government can say, look, this is my problem. I don't know what would be the solution, but once you'll bring the solution, I will probably know that it works, because I know good enough my problem. And that keeps the public sector part of the game when we're talking about digital transformation. Because if you demand the public sector to say what's the solution, what kind of technology is needed, so usually you will get solutions that are not really adapted to what their needs, and you won't, and they won't know what kind of technologies are even there at the market. So I think this is a very good approach that all the programs took part of it and working on it, and I think that we see a lot of success because of this approach. The second thing is the facilitation. I think that once there's a program and there's someone who's managing the process and facilitating the entire process, the private sector and the public sector, when they meet, they have a common language because there's a person that translates it, things that, like Arun mentioned before. And it's easier for both sides to understand what are the needs and what are the potential solutions. And that makes this whole process easier for everyone. And in a digital transformation age, it's really important because I saw, if you're talking about like 5 to 10 years ago, a lot of lectures of people coming to the public sector talking about technology, and the people didn't understand, the basic language or the basic vocabulary. And if you have a facilitator in the middle that helps both parties understand what are the capabilities, what are the advantages in working together, it makes the whole process easier and more effective.
Yeah, I think that argument is indeed like very compelling. And along these lines, talking about a new open innovation approach, the incentive for startups to enter the B2G market is huge. Governments are the largest employers, the biggest data owners, the largest service providers. And on top of that, they provide to the largest user base. They're bigger than Amazon, Facebook, or Google, because, like not everyone shops at Amazon, but everyone's a citizen, right? So the incentive for startups to join these programs is enormous. But so are the barriers to work with public administration. So what can you tell us about the way these programs go around barriers to open innovation, like bureaucracy or a risk-averse culture or procurement complexities?
So I think that the key word for that is structure. All the programs have a clear structure for everyone. So if you're a startup that is entering this kind of program, you understand what are the phases that you will need to go through, what is the duration or the expected duration of this program. You're not starting something without knowing if it will take you 6 months, a year, or maybe 2 years. And also the public sector knows that this is a program that has an ending point and someone is helping them to go through the process. Many times public sector agencies or administrations do things like that by themselves, and it's pretty difficult. And once there's a structure, a clear structure, the application barriers are lower. There's a procurement process that is inside the entire process. So if you started working and applied for a challenge, you know that you won't need to go for another procurement process. And also you have a challenge owner at the end who is interested in solving the challenge that was presented. So I think all these things at the end reduce the barriers, reduce the entry barriers. There's more transparency that is seen, and it helps startups and also SMEs to come into these kinds of programs and say, okay, someone is taking care of me. I know what's going on, and I know that someone actually wants my solution at the end if it will be a really good solution. So that's also incentivizes these companies to work really hard and work with their partners at the public sector. I think that besides the structure issue, these programs also are doing also a marketing campaign for the government. They're showing them at their best sides, and they're showing that governments can adopt and implement technology. And this is something very important because if you'll ask the private sector, the average CEO of the private sector, he will tell you that I won't work with the government. I don't know with who I need to talk to. I don't know how much time this process will take. It will probably take a lot of time. And the potential to expand my solution outside this government will be very difficult. And I think that once that we have these programs, most of these questions are answered and make the whole process more clear and more attractive to startups and companies that want to work with the public sector.
Yeah, I think those are actually great insights. And it is true that certain countries have eased the access for startups into government through that structure that you're mentioning. And much of it is because they understand how Govtech ecosystems work and the strategies or instruments that can foster them. And I think that Enrique Zapata, a Govtech expert at the Latin American Development Bank, can tell us more about the future of government. So I think we can leave the floor for him to tell us more about this. So thank you so much, Roy.
Thank you very much, Sofia. Thank you very much, Roy. Pleasure having you. Thank you for connecting with us.